Are we ready to start?
Βασίλη, θέλω να σε ευχαριστήσω που έκατσες αυτήν την καρέκλα. I want to thank him for sitting in the interview chair.
So Vasilis, what is your last name?
I beg your pardon?
What is your last name again? I'm sorry.
Kampitsis.
Kampitsis.
Mr. Kampitsis is cousin of my husband.
Of course. Everybody's a cousin of your husband. All right, we're ready to start. We are with Mr. Kampitsis today. This is Kefalonia, specifically in Poros. This is July 1, 2022. And I'm Scott Townsend, and this is Sophie Vergotis. And we are doing this interview based on the living histories of Kefalonia. So we're going to have some basic questions we're going to ask you, which you've read. And so we got whatever you want to do. If you would like to speak in Greek, or if you want to speak in English, whatever.
I could say maybe some in Greek, some in English.
That's fine.
Do not make any difference, I think, right?
Whatever.
It's okay, good.
Whatever you want to do. So we're going to start. Where were you born, and when were you born?
I was born in a little village outside of Poros. They call Kampitsis in Kefalonιά.
What have you always been in the island, or what brought you to the island? You were born here, but have you
I was born here, but I left when I was 15 years old. I left from the island. I went to Athens, and then I went to the ship, and I went to New York. And I happened to be an American citizen.
Is that right?
Yes.
So, I assume you live in Poros or close to Poros. Where do you live here in Kefalonia? Is it this or a village, other village?
Say that again.
Where do you live in Kefalonia?
I still live in Kampitsis. It's a small village. Right now is around 30 people live there, but it used to be the capital of the area many years ago. Now the village is almost empty. It's only 30 people.
So we've got some questions here. A lot of it has to do with before the earthquake
Yes.
in 1953, and then a lot of the questions are after the earthquake.
Excellent.
So where in Kefalonia at that time did you live? It sounds like you were a young man, like a child at that point.
Yes.
During the earthquake. So you were living in the village.
I was living in a village, and I remember the time of the war when they have the Emphilio Polemo, you know, the civil war here. I remember they used to move us from one village to the other village because brother used to kill brother, father used to kill kids. Was very difficult time. And I remember I was about 3-4 years old, and I remember they moved us to one village for one day because they're afraid they're going to come to kill us, and then they move us to another village. It was very difficult time.
How old were you at the time?
I was about 5 years old, but I remember lucky it was yesterday.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that experience when you were 5 years old? What would be a typical day in your life? Were you going to school? Was there any?
The school was difficult then to go, but I went to school, yes, and was very poor life. We had not much to eat, not much to sleep. It was difficult times.
So during the Civil War, you were a child at that point. You were 5 to 8 years old.
Yes.
So what were the effects of that, perhaps on your family or your parents, in terms of things like your education, the economy, anything that you can remember other than being
of course, the time of the war was very difficult and leave us a lot of pain in our brains and in our heart. And we try when we grow up how to go away from here and go someplace else to live in burial. For instance, in America, in Germany, in Australia. And fortunately, then I had in my mind how to go to America. And 1963 I went to America.
So part of what you're talking about is the aftermath of the earthquake. So I guess I would like to kind of go back a little bit before you emigrated, before you left to go to the United States, and talk a little bit about that time that you were mentioning between you were a child during the Civil War and the earthquake around the same time. What was your time like between then and the time in 1963 when you left? For example, how did things change after the Civil War, like in your household?
We are lucky because after the earthquake, we had help from different countries. For instance, from Israel, from America, from Sweden, all over Europe. They help us out, and they sent us food, they sent us clothes, and we had difficult time. It was very, very rough time, very difficult.
So can you talk a little bit more about the aid that you received internationally or from the Greek government?
Well, the Greek government was, they tried our best. I remember the airplanes, they throw us bread, or the helicopters, because the day of the earthquake, I remember like it was yesterday. I was in my home with my daddy, and was Sunday, and this house started to shake out, so he took me on his arms, he took me out to the outside of the house. And after a few days, I remember, because the people went and they collect, how they call it, afnofilo?
Laurel leaves.
Yes, and all the people around, maybe 500, 600,000 people, they went over and they collect
Laurel leaves.
And at that time, I remember I was sleeping on little bed, and I turned my head where my feet is supposed to be. And my mommy saw me, and she took me and put me again on the right position. 5-10 minutes later, I moved my head again where my feet should be. And she said, okay, I let him stay there. She went out to work. So after a couple hours, strong earthquake happened, and the stones come where my head's supposed to be. And if I was there, I should be killed. So I wake up and I went out, and I see the whole thing there was dark, because 99% of the houses disappeared. There was no houses around. And I remember lots of people was killed, was dead. So the next day, the help comes from the government, and special from other governments, and we moved down here to Poros to move out of the island, because we thought the island was going to disappear. And I can tell you that maybe 50% of the people of the island, they move out of the island. It used to be around 95,000 people, and they left only maybe 25,000-30,000 people staying in the island.
So, as you mentioned, a great number of people migrated abroad. How did that impact life on the island as people left after the earthquake?
Was 2 points, bad and good. Was bad because most of the people left, and the island is big island, and it's not enough people to produce jobs, and from the other side, people moved to America, moved to Australia or any place else, and they sent money to, and they fixed up brand new houses. And unfortunately, we do not have the houses that we had before the earthquake, because was very beautiful houses, but now is houses only for, let's say, rich people.
So in the style of
Yes,
what the
yes,
English or
yes,
the
yes,
expats
yes.
will. So,
It's like America here now.
and can you? That brings up the issue of your own experiences, because you left and went to the United States. Can you talk about a little bit how you immigrated? You know, what did you do right before you immigrated, and then maybe you can tell us a little bit about your immigration to the United States and New York.
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
When I was 15 years old, I remember that we had nothing to play around, nothing. We have no bikes, we have no football, we have nothing. We was very, very poor, like the third world. And I remember a big tractor, somebody driving the tractor, and my daddy told me that he makes 100 drachmas per day. And 100 drachmas a day was in my mind. I say, I gotta go and make 100 drachmas a day. So I remember I was playing with some kids, cards, and I have a goat, and the goat tried to eat a small olive tree. And I tried to take the goat away from the olive tree, and she did not listen to me. So I went there and I kicked the goat, and the goat died. And my daddy yelled me, and he told me, I'm not going to buy shoes for you. We have no goat now. So I was very angry, and I said, I'm going to leave. And he gave me 500 drachmas, and I left alone, 15 years old, to Athens. And I was trying to find job, was very difficult. And I went to the small ship just to sleep and eat, no money. And I stayed there for 3 months, and then I went to the bigger ship, and the ship fortunately drove to the sea, and I left, 4 people died then, and I left the ship and I went to the bigger ship, and then I said to myself, you gotta find something to go to New York, to go to America. And I went to the bigger ship and I went to America, and I know nobody there. I find a old lady speaking Greek outside the ship. So I asked her if she can help me out to keep me in America. So she was very old lady. She told me, let's go to my husband and talk to him and see what's going to happen. So I went there and I spoke to him, and he said, where are you from? I say, I come from Kefalonιά. He said, Kefalonιά is very smart people. I'm going to keep you here, he said. So he said, go one trip, and the next trip I will keep you here. So I went to the next trip. I went back to him, and he said, go another trip. I say, no, or you keep me, or I go to find my destiny someplace. So he kept me there. He kept me there, and one day I remember I walked outside of a restaurant, they call it George's Restaurant. I went there and I asked him to give me something to eat, and I tell him I have no money. He was Greek. I heard them speaking Greek. So he said, okay, I give you something. So he gave me a soup, and I tell him, I want to pay for by help you working here to clean up the store. So he say, no worries. So I say, let me clean the kitchen. So I went inside, I cleaned the kitchen. No, I asked him for a job before that. He say, I have no job. But when he see me clean up the kitchen, so good, he say, you stay here, you got a job. So I stayed there, and I stayed for a couple of months. And then somebody told me that they needed somebody at Rockefeller Center, dishwasher. So I went to Rockefeller Center, and I got a job as a dishwasher. I stayed 6 months as a dishwasher, and then I became busboy. And the first day I became busboy, guess who I put a water in his glass?
Tell me.
Jackie Kennedy and Robert Kennedy. So honestly, so I felt like I'm a very important person. Yes. And since then, I started to have 2 jobs, and time comes that I had about 300 people working for me in New York.
So can you talk a little bit more about how you went from your first jobs to the point where you were the boss, it sounds like?
Yes. I had, like I say, 2 jobs. And my daddy told me, take your sister there also. So I spoke to my sister, so she went to Canada, and I sent somebody to Canada to bring my sister in New York. So he went with car, and he came back with my sister, nobody stopped him, so she came illegally in New York. And I find her, I took her, I know where good, nice, hard-working boys was around, so I took her around. I don't tell her that I took her to see the boys. So those, I went to 3 different restaurants. So all these 3 people, they come and ask me if they take my sister out. So finally she finds somebody there, and she married him, and they're very happy. They have a business in America, and I was making some money there. I paid her for her wedding, and then I started to work for myself. I started to work for myself. I put some money on the side, and I become waiter in a big high-class restaurant. And I put some money on the side, and then I say, here I have an opportunity. I better go to this small restaurant and work. This way I have an experience, and one day I have my own restaurant. So I went there, and I met some people, and I told them, customers. I told them that I want to go to business. So they told me, I will help you to go to business. So I put my money, and they give me some money, loan. And I bought a pizza place. In 2 years, I had 4 pizza places. And then I opened up another one. And then I opened a big one, and I lost everything. I became poor again. And I bought a taxi. And I was driving taxi for a couple of years. I pay off my taxi, and then I look out for business, and I bought a small deli, and the skies open up and throw me dollars. I was making good living, good money. And then I bought the buildings. I bought 3 buildings in Manhattan.
What year was this?
I beg your pardon?
What year was this?
1977. I bought the buildings. Yes, and I was making, thank God, good money, and then unfortunately, 1987, I come to Greece to do some business in Greece, and my wife did not like it here, so she left to New York, and I stay here. I stay here, and we start fights with courts, and I sold the buildings, and I moved here, and I have a new family here.
So, to go back a little bit, while you were in the United States and you were building your business, what
Yeah.
kind of contact did you have with your family or people in Kefalonia or in Greece?
Oh, I always have contact. In my mind was Kefalonιά. I always want to come back here and stay here for, to die here. And every year I was coming at least 2 times a year. I come here to Kefalonιά. Kefalonia people is like Ulysses. He went to Corfu, and 10 years later he came back to his island. And we feel that Odysseus is, Ithaca is here in Poros area. I don't know if you know about it, if you heard about it, but sooner or later the whole world it will discover that Ulysses' city was here. Ithaca is here.
So, to go back a little bit, a lot of what we talked about is in the 60s and 70s and into the 80s. And so if we kind of go back to that time when you were a kid, before you left at 15,
Yes.
can you tell us a little bit more about what your daily life was like? You mentioned things like there wasn't much to do, there were no toys, can you tell us a little
Yes.
bit more about that?
Now we come here and we sit in beautiful couches. Then was no couches in the houses. We live like in the third world. Was very poor times, and I remember that people was no machines, was no cars. People they have the animals and they went to the farms, and was really difficult time. And people that they want to succeed, they always want to leave the island and come back sometime here with money and to help the island to be like it is today.
So what was a typical day, say during the summertime, when you were 12 years old?
Yes.
After the earthquake, what would your household, what would your mom and dad, mother and father do? What would you do on a typical day?
My mom and dad, for instance, when May comes, they used to go and cut all the greens for the animals to keep them for the winter time. June, they went to cut the wheat for the bread. July, they went to. There was no machines. We put the horses to do
To clean
the wheat. Was really hard work, and again was no machines. They wait for the air to be able to clean up the wheat from the. Yes, was really hard work, difficult, very difficult.
So threshing the wheat by hand.
Yes,
throwing it up.
yes. Was extremely very hard work, very hard work. Now we live like kings. Then was really hard, difficult time. And I said many times, I wish my daddy was in life to see how we live today.
So, going back again to the time period right after the earthquake, are there any landmarks or sites or buildings that survived the earthquake? What survived? Did anything survive?
Almost nothing survived. Only in North Kefalonιά is maybe 20-30 buildings that they do not fall down. But all over is almost nothing survived. It is still some buildings that they still not fall down all the buildings, but 99% of the buildings is.
So in your village, everything is gone. What were
Still a few houses, but nobody can live there because they're afraid they might, if there's another earthquake, they might get killed. But still some houses there because we left the village and we come maybe 1,000 meters further down.
So you were with your family and you settled. You ended up settling in Poros. Where did you build in Poros, or
yes.
did you stay in Village?
Right now I have this hotel here. I built it myself, and we live here and we live at the other village, Kampitsis also.
So you rebuilt in the village, but you've also
yes.
So I'm trying to just catch myself.
Okay.
Is there one building site that you wish had survived the era after World War II earthquake? Is there any particular building?
Well, it's a lot of buildings that we wish that survive. For instance, my church is fall down. In Argostoli was really beautiful buildings that we wish that still there now. The jail, the hospitals, it's a lot of buildings that was very important, very important buildings that is not there anymore.
Tell us some social practices, values, or aspects of the island's identity from the 50s that you'd like younger generations to remember and keep alive. So, what kinds of practices or values from that time period would you want younger people to know they're on the island? What would you tell them today?
Well, we always tell, for instance, my kids that how difficult times was there at that time, and how comfortable and nice we live right now. I really do not want to live these times again because it was difficult, it was hard times. Now I feel that we have nothing to jealous from the richest country in the world. We all live beautifully here now, and I really do not, I want my kids to know how difficult it was then and how beautiful we live now.
Is there anything you'd like to add or add?
Then, of course, was more love to each other. The family was more together. Right now we become like Americans. Everything is free, everything is loose. I don't know how bad or good it is, but this is it. Everything is loose.
So values.
Yes,
Really talking
yes.
about those values. Yeah. Do you want to tell us any more about that?
Like what?
I don't know. Maybe you could tell us whatever you'd like to tell us about those values. What are the kinds of values that you want to
Well,
transfer?
for instance, those years we used to protect our mothers, our sisters, for ethical reasons. Right now, if my sister do not have a boyfriend, for instance, I say maybe she's something wrong with her. Those years, if I saw my sister have a boyfriend, I will kill her. You know, it was different type of. And I remember once I was 12 years old, and my sister, she tried to clean some fish, and she sit down, and I saw her legs, and I told her, "What the hell are you doing there? You know, put your clothes on." Right now, we are loose. Which I feel might be better now, and I'm sure it's better now, but was then we learn from our fathers and our mothers. I remember my mother, when she see on TV some ladies dancing or see her body a little bit, she say, "What the hell is she doing there?" Do you understand me?
I do. I do understand.
Yes.
So we're getting towards the end of the interview, and I guess this is the point where I'd like to ask you if there's anything you would like to add or ask of us.
I'm asking you, whatever you ask now, what are you going to do with that?
Oh, well, my colleague Sophia and I can.
Okay, Vasilis. We are working in social research in the North Carolina State University Department of Design that is guided by Professor Scott Dawson, and they are collecting information about the history that is lost day after day. That's why we have the need to interview people like you, having real memories from the decade 45, 55, very important for the island during the 20th century, maybe the most important for this island. So this research will be used for the archives of Kefalonia, will add to the archives book hopefully, and we need also to have you consent, έντυπο συνένεσης, ότι συμφωνείς ότι η πληροφόρηση που μας δίνεις είναι πραγματική και ότι θα χρησιμοποιηθεί για λόγους έρευνας, όχι για να σε εκθέσει σε
I have no problem, yes, I have no problem.
Yes, so we need your signature here.
You got it.
Yes, thank you, Vasilis. Because this will be used as academic research and as social research to be added in the archives of Kefalonia.
No problem. Okay.
And also to be presented in the North Carolina State University after the kids will be back. They must show their work in Kefalonia to the university to prove their research here.
Well, the other thing is we're designing a website that will be an archive that people in the community can look at. And so
yes.
The things that you're talking about,
Yes.
people can look and read, and that history will be available to them. So it's available. It's very available to people here, but also abroad. So that story will be told.
Very good. Okay.
If you agree, we need on this paper, please, Vasilis, your signature.
Okay.
Okay, that you agree in the questions here, and we'll be grateful. We are grateful
Excellent.
for your participation in our research.
Excellent. Thank you.
So please have this and give us back.
One of those.
No,
right?
it's 3 pages
Ah.
with the questions that you agree.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Vasilis. It was great. Thank you so much.
It's pleasure.
And it was also a surprise because we had not you in the program. We had all the rest except you, but you are a treasure now. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. You want to call somebody else?
Any questions, kids? Any questions
No,
for
we can open it
Vasilis?
up at this point.
Όχι.
You were very elaborate. You said a lot of things. So I
Είπες πολλά πράγματα ωραία, Βασίλη, αλήθεια. Yes.
We talked a lot about emigrating to the United States, which I thought,
yeah.
It's a typical case of person who, forced by the needs of the earthquake and the war, left. And he came back.
Yeah.
If I start
And
to say my
he's very successful
story,
as man,
is big story.
as father,
Perhaps we can continue this
as
at
member
some
of the
point.
community. He's
Continue your
excellent.
discussion.
Honestly, big story.
It sounds like you had a full life.
Believe me. President of the United States invited me to the White House, believe it or not, Mr. Reagan,
Yeah,
1984.
right.
I was the president of the Greek American Republicans.
Ah,
Yes, Vasilis, we must make another interview regarding all this because now this interview is based
Yes.
on the earthquake. But maybe
Believe me,
we can come another day and have this long
big story.
interview.
no, I'm real curious. I have to stick with my script.
Yes.
But when you were talking about New York, I wanted to say, well, what neighborhoods? Like, I mean, you
Yes.
mentioned Manhattan,
Yes.
but you must have started in a place like in another borough.
yes.
Where were you at over it? Where was the first job? Where in New York was your first job?
I told you on that restaurant in Manhattan,
In Manhattan.
George's restaurant.
Right, of course. That's why Jackie Kennedy would be there.
Yes.
Right. Of course it has to be Manhattan.
Yes.
Right. Right.
Vasilis, we need a long interview regarding your life.
Yes,
Not the
yes,
earthquake.
yes,
So,
yes.
promise, we have 1 month here.
Okay.
We'll come another day for this long interview.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll invite you at the center
Pleasure.
to make the interview.
Okay.
No. It's in the back somewhere.
Να βάλω 3 υπογραφές.
Wait a minute.
There's something.
Here. Here.
Εδώ να υπογράψω.
Yes, please. You agree that the information and whatever has to do with your interview will be used for research reasons, not exposing you. Thank you so much. So nice, Igor.